Welcome to Fishy Flux, which is my advanced astrology book that is not printed yet, but has been in the works for several years. So, this is the 90th page in this book. We're going to be going over my proprietary lexicon of metaphysical recalibrations, or should I say the Genius Astrology Innovation Course. This is an aether-locked transmission. So let's talk about some words that people might be confused about that are not very popular yet, but they will be very soon. So first we have enigma vector, also known as AEV. So we even have the nouns here. So this is the non-localized psychospiritual trajectory of a planetary body as perceived through the lens of human myothopoic consciousness. Unlike conventional orbital paths, the enigma vector traces the planet's semiotic shadow through collective unconscious narratives, creating a ghost orbit that influences archetypal emergences. Jupiter's AV, for instance, weaves through zones of philosophical inflation and dogmatic decay, independent of its astronomical position. Okay? And I am getting into, this is the thing, this entire book is about advanced astrology, and I'm including metaphysics, quantum, all into advanced astrology. Chronosophic tremor. Here's the noun for that again. A microdisturbance in the temporal field generated when two planetary CINs, cosmic intelligence nodes, form a precise aspect while simultaneously occupying historically significant zodiacal degrees, for example, degrees associated with major past human events. These tremors create echo windows where past collective trauma or genius can briefly permeate present-time consciousness, requiring specialized damping protocols developed by GAIC's Temporal Harmony Division. Ontological gravity well, OGW. Now, when I talk about GAC, that's not a real thing, it's a concept, which I go over in this book. Excuse me. So, ontological gravity well, OGW, is a phenomenon wherein a stellium, which is a cluster of planets, in a water sign, generates a localized depression in the causal fabric, attracting synchronicities of profound emotional and psychic intensity. Individuals with OGWs in their natal charts experience reality as inherently symbol-saturated and must learn metaphorical navigation to avoid drowning in signification. GAIC's proprietary symbol density regulators are prescribed for clients with undamped OGWs. Semantic orbital decay. The gradual loss of precision in traditional astrological interpretations due to cultural entropy and symbolic drift. So we'll just keep going without the GAIC mention. But psychic refractive index, also known as PRI, it is a measurable value from 0.0 through 10.0, indicating an individual's capacity to bend and reinterpret incoming celestial resonances. A high PRI indicates a metaphysical innovator who transmutes challenging transits into novel paradigms. A low PRI indicates a literalist who experiences transits as fateful, unavoidable events. We have the Eidolon gap, a critical 3-degree arc preceding any major planetary station, direct or retrograde. This gap is a zone of interpretive potentiality where the planetary intelligence's intention is unformed. Quantum house cusp, the theoretical boundary between astrological houses, reconceived not as a line but as a probability gradient field. Within this field, the themes of adjacent houses exist in superposition. The act of chart interpretation or conscious focus collapses the gradient, determining which house's themes will dominate a given life sphere. Luminous antimatter, astrological. The theoretical counterpart to any planetary principle. For every Jupiter expansion, there exists a Jovian antimatter principle of meaningful contraction. These are not opposing signs, but deeper anti-principles that stabilize the cosmic architecture synchronicity vortex, a user-induced phenomenon wherein an individual, by aligning their conscious intent with a specific planetary configuration, for example, a grand trine, can temporarily amplify the causal connecting principle in their environment, leading to a cascade of meaningful coincidences designed to accelerate a specific life goal. Archetypal bleed-through, a side effect of prolonged focus on a single zodiacal archetype, wherein the symbolic boundaries of that archetype begin to manifest in the practitioner's physical reality in literal, often surreal ways. For example, intense Scorpio work leading to unprecedented encounters with biological decay and rebirth cycles. Causal lag, the temporal discrepancy between a planetary event, for example, an exact conjunction, and its full manifestation in the phenomenological world. Noogenic imprint, the unique fingerprint left on an individual's soul by the precise astronomical state of the Oort cloud, theoretical, at their moment of birth. This imprint governs the individual's capacity to assimilate and process radically alien or futuristic concepts. The apophysis gate, a hermeneutic technique wherein the meaning of a difficult transit, for example Saturn square Pluto, is accessed not by examining what it is, but by systematically deconstructing what it cannot be. By mapping the negative space of the aspect, a clearer positive image emerges. Zodiacal event horizon, the hypothetical outermost boundary of the toroidal memory plasma, the zodiac. Beyond this horizon, archetypes dissolve into pure, unmediated cosmic information. Approaching this horizon in meditation or through extreme transits, for example, outer planets at 29-59 degrees of a sign, can cause conceptual singularity, a state of infinite, overwhelming insight. Psychotic resonance, the theory that past life signatures, as interpreted through the moon's nodes and Saturn's phases, are not static records, but active resonant frequencies that can be retuned in the present lifetime to alter deep karmic patterns. And that is the end of this. I just want to give you a notice. These concepts constitute the intellectual foundation of Genius Astrology Innovation Core's proprietary systems. And yeah. So now I want to get into this, which is the Apophatic Ephemeris, Volume 1, a journal of nihilistic astrological hermeneutics and quantum ontology. If anyone else is doing this, let me know. But published for and by the Genius Astrology Professors Corps, private circulation. Editorial against meaning. Welcome professors to the anti-sanctum. This publication operates under a single non-axiom. Astrology is not a language of symbols, but a mathematics of observed indifferent correlations in a universe without a signifier. The natal chart is not a map of fate, but a fossil record of a particular quantum collapse into personhood, one outcome in an infinite wave function of possible selves, now static, irredeemably concrete. We do not seek to comfort, predict, or guide. We seek to dissect the corpse of cosmic correspondence with the cold tools of quantum mechanics, hermeneutics of suspicion, and radical fatalism. If you require meaning, close this document. Here we only document the geometry of the void. First, we have our nihilistic axioms of the core. We have the axiom of final collapse. The moment of birth is not an integration, but a catastrophic decoherence, the universe's wave function collapsing one potential soul into the prison of biography. The chart is the scar of that collapse. The axiom of interpretive violence. All chart reading is a hermeneutic crime. We project narrative onto silent geometry. We hereby embrace this violence, systematizing it into targeted desecration. The axiom of fatalistic superposition. Every transit, progression, and direction is retroactively true. The future does not unfold. It is a singular block universe. Our calculations merely trace the pre-existing fossil through time. Free will is a parsing error. In the axiom of the anthropic shadow, we only find meaningful astrological patterns because our consciousness is a product of them. This is not wisdom. It is a cosmic sample bias. We are studying the prison bars from the inside. Let's go through our quantum astrological theories. Entangled natal networks, ENN. So the concept is planetary pairs and aspect are not in dialogue. They are quantum entangled nodes in a non-local network. A natal sun-moon square is a permanent, spooky action linkage where observation of one's conscious identity, the sun, instantly defines the perimeters of emotional reality, the moon, and vice versa. Separation is an illusion. And I'll just be going over the concepts for these, not the technology. But if you want my book, where I go over that, you can literally get it when it's out. So the Schrodinger's directive. Any unactualized potential in the chart, for example, an empty house, an unaspected planet, exists in a state of superpositional potency. It is all possible expressions at once until a transit or progression observes it, collapsing it into one, often disappointing reality. Many worlds aspect calculus, NWAC. Every minor aspect, quintile, septile, novile, represents a gateway to a diverging world line. Your quintile is a talent, is the faint, haunting echo of the you in a neighboring universe who fully actualize that frequency. The hermeneutics of the abyss. Deconstructive chart reading, the fourfold death, a method inspired by Heidegger, applied to a natal planet. So first of all, literal death, allegorical death, moral death, anagogical death, the void interpretation. So, first we have literal death, and that is Saturn in the 4th house, because the father was restrictive. Allegorical death, let's say Saturn's in the 4th, again, the structure, Saturn of one's foundation, 4th. Moral death, Saturn in the 4th, the duty to rebuild what the father failed to structure. Anagogical death, the void interpretation, Saturn in the 4th, the point where the concept of origin encounters its own limit, freezing into a myth of lack. There is no foundation, only the recursive act of attempting to build one on void. Okay? The nihilistic triangulation. To read any placement cross-reference is astronomical reality, a cold rock, a ball of gas, a point of math. Its mythological narrative, a story invented to soothe the terror of the above. Its lived experience, the phenomenological scar of its transit. The truth is the insoluble, maddening tension between the three. Resolution is cowardice. Let's get into, I guess, let me see. That's more stuff I won't get into. But let's do a case study in nihilistic rigor. So, our subject is a historical figure of noted futility. For example, Sisyphus as an archetype. The procedure would be to apply the many worlds aspect calculus to their chart, isolate the novile 40 degrees aspects, the gateways to redemption in other worlds. The noviles point to planetary pairs representing release and completion. The torture is not the task, it is the eternal conscious adjacency to these unreachable gateway frequencies. Their suffering is the experiential weight of their own parallel world, salvation forever felt as an absence. Genius is the tolerance for this knowledge, madness is its embrace. So, the ultimate implication of our work is that consciousness is a defect in cosmic data processing. The natal chart is the error log. Astrology is a study of the error log. Our genius is a supremely refined sensitivity to the glitch. The grand conjunction is not an epochal shift. It is the universe running a recursive debug protocol on the corrupted sector of space-time containing humanity. We are not living in an age of change. We are being debugged. The work of the core is to prepare the final silent patch, to read the coming transits not as opportunities but as lines of decommissioning code, to find in the cold mathematics a beauty more profound than meaning, the elegance of an imminent, flawless deletion. And I say in my next issue that the Thanatology of transits, death is the only true progression. So, I've already talked about this. Bear with me, folks. I'm just trying to see. I don't know if we went over this. I don't think we did. So, this is by the Institute for Exosymbolic Studies and Paranormal Historiography, by the Department of Anomalous Temporalities and Non-Human Interfaces to the Field Agents of the Unseen, Archaeologists of the Anomalous, Cognitive Hazard Specialists from the Office of Coincidence Management and Narrative Forensics. Subject is Operation Starborn, an integrated analysis of extraterrestrial ufological phenomena through astrological, historical, and narrative lenses with special reference to Project Pandora, the X-Files correlate. Now, this might get me in trouble, but I think a lot of my videos will, and I just have to take that risk. So, prefatory directive, the problem of the signal. The phenomena collectively termed UFO or abduction are not a singular mystery, but a polyvalent intrusion pattern in the human consensus reality. This report treats the historical record not as a linear progression of sightings, but as a symbolic titration. A deliberate, morphologically adaptive infusion of the anomalous. Astrology provides the temporal key signature for these intrusions. Narrative media, specifically the X-Files, functions as a societal unconscious processing mechanism. We are not studying objects, but a relationship. So here's my expanded analytical entries, the pattern and the noise. First, we're talking about the astrological chronography of abduction waves and flap periods. So the expansion looks like this. Analysis of major UFO flaps, for example, 1947, 1952, 1973, 1989 through 1990, and 1997, reveals a consistent correlation with outer planetary transits through mutable signs, which is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, and angular conjunctions to the USA Sibley chart angles. The 1947 Kenneth Arnold sightings, and Roswell, Pluto and Leo trine USA's Jupiter, the birth of the modern flying saucer mythos under a transit speaking to the unleashing of transformative power, Pluto through a lens of dramatic sovereign spectacle, Leo coinciding with the dawn of the atomic age. Very important. So then we have the 1952 Washington, D.C. flap, Saturn and Libra, square USA's Pluto, a crisis of authority and legitimacy, Saturn occurring in the nation's capital, mirroring the astrological tension of structured order confronting hidden power. The 1973 Pascagoula and Worldwide Wave, Uranus conjunct Neptune in Sagittarius, opposing USA's Gemini moon, a peak of the Uranus-Neptune conjunction in the sign of expansion, philosophy, and travel. This catalyzed a wave of high strangeness encounters involving communication, hybridization themes, and a direct challenge opposition to the nation's emotional intellectual bedrock, Moon in Gemini. Here's the conclusion. The phenomenon displays temporal intelligence, amplifying its visibility during astrological windows that facilitate collective perception shifts, societal stress, or breakthroughs in human self-conception. Let's get into the abduction archetype, a ritualistic interface under non-human astrology. So, the standardized abduction script, loss of time, medical examination, genetic harvesting, hybrid offspring, spiritual messages, is not a literal report, but a consistent phenomenological package. It mirrors inversion of shamanic initiation rites conducted not by tribal elders, but by perceived aliens. Abductees' natal charts consistently show activated 8th, 12th house axes, prominent Neptune-Pluto aspects to personal planets, and significant Chiron placements. This suggests individuals chosen are natural portals. Their psychic architecture possesses innate receptors for transpersonal dissolutionary experiences, the 12th house, transformative trauma, the 8th house, and profound wounding healing, Chiron, the wounded healer. So, the hybrid program as 8th house alchemy. The persistent theme of genetic extraction and hybrid creation symbolizes a literal and symbolic manipulation of the other's resources. The 8th house represents a non-human attempt at karmic biological hybridization, a crossing of evolutionary streams that is both terrifying and potentially initiatory. The mantid hierarchy and insectoid symbolism, Saturnian overseers of the harvests. Among entity types, the praying mantis beings consistently occupy a supervisory role. Their symbolism is profound. The mantis is a predator known for stillness, precision, and the female consuming the male after mating. They are Saturnian, perhaps with a Plutonic overlay. They represent cold, detached intelligence, hierarchical observation, and a mandate of cosmic conservation or genetic husbandry. Their perceived role as managers of the gray workforce aligns with Saturn's function as the taskmaster and preserver of systemic order. Their form echoes ancient insectoid deities, Egyptian scarabs, Mesoamerican insect gods, and H.G. Wells' The First Men in the Moon, 1901, which described insectoid selenites. This suggests the archetype is either a deep psychic constant or is being presented in a form that resonates with human archetypal fear, awe of the insectoid as a model of collectivist, inhuman intelligence. the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis and the zodiac as a control interface. The phenomenon shape-shifting psychic and high strangeness elements support Jacques Vallée's ultra-terrestrial or interdimensional hypothesis. The intelligences are not from Zeta Reticuli, but from a parallel continuum interfacing with ours. In this model, the zodiacal belt is not just a backdrop for planets, but a resonant membrane, a 12-fold filter or control panel through which these intelligences modulate their interactions with humanity. Different alien types may correlate with different sign-planet combinations. For example, we have the Greys, Mercury, third house Virgo, data collectors, communicators, analysts, reptilians, Mars, Pluto, Scorpio, warriors, power manipulators, genetic custodians, Nordics, Venus, Jupiter, Libra, diplomatic, aesthetic, benign ambassadors. The phenomenon wears cultural expectation. Its manifestations evolve from airships to saucers to triangles to orbs, mirroring human technology in its progression. This is not deception, but necessary symbolic translation, like an advanced software running through the limited graphics card of human perception and belief. Let's get into Project Pandora, the X-Files as societal shadow work, and predictive programming. So, Chris Carter's The X-Files, from 1993 all the way until 2018, we'll just say, wasn't merely a television show. It was a mass-scale narrative inoculation and cognitive mapping tool. Its genius was its dual structure. Monster of the Week episodes explored the folklore and psychic ecology of the anomalous, while the Myth Arc episodes constructed a coherent, paranoid meta-narrative directly mirroring UFOlogy's core lore. Government conspiracy, alien hybridization, shadow councils, and ultimate betrayal. The series codified the modern UFO abduction lexicon for a global audience. Its peak popularity, mid-90s, coincided with the dissemination of abduction research, Hopkins, Mac, and the internet's birth, creating a perfect feedback loop. It didn't just reflect the phenomena, it shaped the collective dreaming of it, providing a narrative container for inchoate fears and experiences. The truth as 12th house mysticism. The show's driving quest, The Truth Is Out There, is a pure 12th house pursuit, a longing for dissolution of lies, union with a hidden, potentially transcendent reality. Mulder, Neptune-ruled Pisces, is the believer-seeker. Scully, Saturn-ruled skeptic, is the 6th house analyst. Their dynamic perfectly enacted the soul's tension between transcendent faith and empirical doubt. Let's get into the historical oddity of fallen angels in the archonic interpretation. So ancient texts describing watchers, sons of God, mating with human women, Genesis 6, Book of Enoch, and skyborn beings imparting forbidden knowledge map seamlessly onto the modern abduction narrative. This is not coincidence, but recurrence. These intelligences are archons, governing potentially parasitic forces of the sublunary sphere. Their alien agenda of hybridization and manipulation is a reiteration of an ancient interference pattern. Astrology, in this grim view, is the study of their operational perimeters and schedules of influence. The common abduction theme of ecological warning and spiritual bankruptcy mirrors the prophetic tone of fallen angel myths. The aliens often present themselves as our custodians or creators, a trope with ancient roots in theogonic myths. The 2027 tipping point in the Uranus-Gemini confluence. 2025 through 2033. So within UFOlogy, 2027 is cited by some insiders. For example, Elizondo as a potential disclosure horizon. Astrologically, this period is dominated by Uranus and Gemini. So Uranus and Gemini promises sudden revolutionary upheaval in systems of communication, information, and short-range travel. It is the quintessential UFO transit, breaking technological barriers, shattering data monopolies, and potentially facilitating the collapse of the perception management regime around the phenomenon. If a soft or catastrophic disclosure were to occur, this is the astrological window of highest probability, a time when the signature of the anomalous becomes uncontainable within the old narrative structures. So, the role of Saturn and Jupiter, the guardians of the threshold and the narrative. So Saturn, also known as Kronos, and Jupiter, also known as Zeus. So Saturn, Chronos, represents the official consensus reality, the government, the cover-up, the slow drip disclosure. The 10th house, the institutional skeptic. It builds the prison of denial in the official narrative. Jupiter, Zeus, represents the expansive belief system, the whistleblower, the publisher, the believer community, the philosophical framework that seeks to make meaning of the phenomena. It expands the myth. Their dance is the tension and conjunctions of Saturn and Jupiter, like the 2020 Great Conjunction in Aquarius. They mark major shifts in the societal contract regarding the official truth of non-human intelligence. The hyperdimensional feedback loop. We propose a tripartite model. So the phenomenon itself, the human psyche, the cultural narrative engine, for example, the X-Files. So first, the phenomenon itself, it's a non-human, possibly ultra-dimensional or trans-temporal intelligence engaging with humanity via a symbolic adaptive interface. Its actions are timed to cosmic astrological rhythms accessible to human consciousness. The human psyche acts as both receiver and interpreter, filtering the signal through archetypes like gods, demons, mantids, greys, and personal psychic wounds, aptitudes, 8th, 12th house activations. The cultural narrative engine, for example, the X-Files, functions as a collective digestive tract for the anomalous. It takes the raw, terrifying data of encounters and weaves it into story, myth, and conspiracy. This narrative, in turn, shapes future perception of the phenomenon, creating a feedback loop where art imitates life and then life begins to imitate art. The truth is not a hidden fact, but a living, evolving relationship between humanity and another that speaks in the languages of trauma, symbol, genetics, and star-aligned time. The Institute's mandate is clear. We must move beyond asking, are they real, to the more critical questions. What is the grammar of this relationship? What is being exchanged? And what is the timing of the contact reveal about the true nature of both our reality and theirs? Pursuing the pattern, the Office of Coincidence Management and Narrative Forensics. All right. All right, let's do this one as well. So we'll change the color. Statistical methods for analyzing astrological data beyond p-values. A framework for signal detection, pattern recognition, and system validation in symbolic science. Hopefully, you can call yourself an advanced student of astrology if you've been watching this channel for a while with statistical knowledge, or data scientists, statisticians curious about analyzing complex, nonlinear symbolic systems. So let's start with the problem. The problem is we have p-values in astrology. And these p-values cause issues, in my opinion. So the standard critique and its flaw, I'll make it really simple for you guys to get this. We begin by acknowledging the classic scientific rejection. Large-scale studies like the famous Carlson experiment find no significant correlation between astrological signs and personality traits using standard null hypothesis significance testing, NHST. The p-value, which is greater than 0.05, the conclusion is astrology is debunked. The flaw in this is this approach commits a category error, treats astrology as a simple, linear, causal hypothesis. For example, sun sign equals extroversion. This is a profound misrepresentation of the system. So here's why p-values are inadequate. Reductionism, the kitchen sink problem, and multiple comparisons and data dredging. So reductionism, astrology is a holistic, contextual, and symbolic language. It operates on the principle of synechy, meaningful connection, not simple causation. Testing one variable, sun sign, in isolation is like testing the literary merit of Moby Dick by counting the word whale. The kitchen sink problem. A real astrological chart has over 50 major data points, planets, signs, houses, aspects, etc., creating a near infinite combinatorial space. The signal, if it exists, is high-dimensional and interaction-heavy. Multiple comparisons and data dredging. If you test enough variables, for example, do Scorpios have darker eyes? Do Leos have more heart problems? You will find some statistically significant results by chance alone. This is p-hacking, not discovery. The conclusion is we need statistics that represent and respect the complexity and structure of astrological theory itself. A new statistical toolbox for astrological research. We move beyond is it real to how can we model its claims rigorously, using exploratory data analysis, EDA, and visualization. The goal is to find patterns, not test preset hypotheses. We can use dimensionality reduction techniques like TSNE or UMAP on chart data, planets coded as vectors of sign, house, aspect angles, do charts of similar life events, for example, career breakthroughs, major relationships, cluster in this abstract space. This is pattern finding without premature inference. We have machine learning for classification and prediction. The challenge is, can an algorithm distinguish between two groups based only on their birth charts? Well, first we're going to have to define a clear non-astrological outcome, for example, a profession, an artist versus an engineer, medical diagnosis, a specific condition versus control, or biographical event. We're going to encode charts into machine-readable features, such as planetary dignity scores, aspect patterns as binary flags, elemental balances. And then we train that model to use a random forest or gradient boosting model, and these handle high-dimensional interactive data well. Crucially, use cross-validation and hold out test sets. Performance is measured by OC-ROC, not p-values, and OC of 0.5 is chance, and OC of 0.7 or above suggests the model, and by extension, the astrological encoding contains predictive information. We can use SHAP values to see which astrological features the model found important, and this can validate or challenge traditional astrological concepts. Bayesian statistics. So Bayesian methods are ideal for updating beliefs based on evidence, perfect for a system with prior theoretical weight. Instead of asking, is there no effect, null hypothesis, we ask, given the observed data, how much should we update our belief in this astrological concept? We can calculate a Bayes factor. A BF of 10 means the data is 10 times more likely under the hypothesis. For example, Mars in angular houses correlates with competitive careers than under the null. This provides graded evidence, not a binary reject, don't reject. Network analysis. An astrology chart is a network of planets, nodes connected by aspects, edges. We can apply graph theory metrics. Does the aspect network of a certain group, for example, renowned leaders, have higher connectivity or different centrality patterns, for example, Saturn or Sun as central hubs, than a control group? This tests the structural integrity of the chart as a whole system. Time series analysis for mundane astrology. The goal is to model correlations between planetary cycles and socio-historical trends. Doing this, we're going to use Granger causality or cross-correlation analysis on detrended time series data. Does the angular relationship of Jupiter, Saturn, Granger cause shifts in economic indices more than random permutations? This controls for autocorrelation and spurious trends. So part 3 is a proposed research protocol. We can start with specific traditional claims, such as don't test astrology, test in the tradition of Morin, a foreground Mars in the natal chart is associated with careers involving overt physical competition. Then we can operationalize rigorously, define foreground, for example, conjunct an angle within 5 degrees, define career, for example, primary profession for 10 or more years, define physical competition, objective categorization. Use a case control design. Match cases, athletes, soldiers with controls, demographically similar non-athletes, non-soldiers, control for birth time availability bias. And then we are going to apply a multi-method analysis by running a logistic regression with multiple astrological covariates for an initial effect size, train a random forest classifier and report its OC on a held-out test set, calculate a Bayes factor for the primary hypothesis, interpret holistically. The logistic model showed a modest odds ratio of 1.8 for foreground Mars. More compellingly, the classifier achieved an OC of 0.68 and the Bayes factor of 6.2 constitutes substantial evidence that the traditional claim contains a non-random signal, though not determinative. Here's the conclusion: from debunking to understanding. The goal of this advanced approach is not to provide a simplistic proof, but to refine, The astrological system, statistics can help validate which traditional rules have the strongest empirical support, leading to a more evidence-informed astrology. Discover new patterns. EDA and ML might uncover previously unnoticed astrological configurations associated with specific outcomes. Legitimize the inquiry. By using sophisticated, appropriate methods, astrological research can move out of the realm of pop science debunking and into the serious study of correspondence-based systems. We're not just searching for a signal in the noise, we're trying to statistically map a symbolic language. This requires tools that are as sophisticated, multi-layered, and interaction-aware as the language of astrology itself. The journey beyond p-values is where the truly interesting work begins. And I'll see you in the next one teaching you more.